Good morning, Chameleon Academy. Welcome to this Saturday Chameleon Workshop. If you're watching the replay of this, know that this goes live every Saturday at 12 p.m. noon Pacific. And so if you want to join the live studio audience, you are welcome. Happens every Saturday. So welcome everybody who is here. Ramphibious from Greece. Always love it when we have the international crowd here. Justin and Stephanie and James and Alicia and Dustin. We have people who went to Madagascar with me. That is wonderful. Well, we are going to be talking about the trip that I just went to Madagascar. And when you go to something like this, then you have access to all sorts of wild data. And so I'm going to be talking about how we use that wild data and why it's important. So, hello, Wayne Abides. Hey, Eliza Ann is here. Steve Hefner. Oh, this is wonderful. We got all sorts of people joining in here. Now, for those of you who are used to my Saturday show here, we're going to be trying out this new format. I don't know how long it's going. It may go beyond the hour, but we're going to be filling that with a lot of education and goodness. So, okay, folks. Let's go ahead and get into presentation mode to where we're going to be talking about wild data and enriched chameleon husbandry. We're going to be developing this week's topic. Now, this, of course, is inspired by my trip to Madagascar. I just got back, and so everything's fresh in my mind. It was an incredible trip. I got to go with people from the Chameleon Academy. So a number of the people who are in the chat right now. And and of course, we saw chameleons, lemurs, and the different environments that the chameleons are in. Now, I just want to take a little bit of a note here and say, I also went for the dogs. When I first went, I noticed how many stray dogs there were and that they weren't treated well. And so I specifically brought a whole lot of treats with me that I would share with every good boy that we ran across. I had to choose between the treats and a tripod, and the treats won out. So I got to meet a lot of good boys. Good boy, BOI. When it's I, it's gender neutral. So they're all good boys, and people would yell from the bus, "Oh, good boy!" And so I would rush to the window and toss something out the window if I had to. So, hello, Two Turtle Tom, Natalie, Joanne, welcome, and Annette. So, Andy's asking, what chameleons did you see and what else did you do? Oh, well, you know what, Andy, we're going to be talking about some of that right now. So, Misty Mountain fans, that's my wife, Yvette. Love it. So, well, one wonderful thing about being over there in Madagascar is you get to see a lot of different environments. And I specifically chose an itinerary that would expose us to different environmental conditions. You see over there with First Fur Minor, it's kind of a low shrub, low tree type thing where the carpet chameleons were. It's just thick, brushy. And the shamrock chameleons, Kaluma O'Shaughnessy in Ranamafana, it was a thick rainforest. Same with Kaluma Malthe in Andasi Bay, and very wet, humid environment. Oh, Kirsten's here. Hello. Hey, Kirsten was on the trip with me. Habitats for Parsons chameleons, high trees. They like to be up high in the canopy. And then habitat for panther chameleons. Anybody who's been there knows that that's kind of tongue-in-cheek. Panther chameleons are everywhere. They don't have a habitat. They live on Earth, and they go wherever they darn well feel like it. And of course, there's the fogfather habitat. That's where you're going to find a fogfather. Now, one thing that we learn when we go to Madagascar is that chameleons are hardy creatures. it's a little bit deceptive when you sit here in on our forums or in Captive Husbandry, and you hear all about how chameleons are so fragile and they're gonna so easily die. That's a bunch of garbage. Chameleons are incredibly hardy. You can see that Parsons, and if you zoom in, you'll notice that Parsons is dehydrated and is missing an eye, and she is still trucking it along. Yeah, of course she's kind of in trouble there, but she was still strong and waiting for the rains. And as soon as the rains come, she's going to bounce back. You look at that carpet chameleon there, picture of health, beautiful. But if you look a little closer, he's missing his back leg. So these are the kind of conditions that the chameleons are under. Nature is not fun. Nature is not anybody's friend. And these chameleons are doing great. So they are, well, not great. They are surviving everything nature can throw at them. So I want you to change the way you think about chameleons and realize they're incredibly hardy. And if they die, that's because our husbandry is that bad. So we need to turn that to look at us and realize it's our husbandry. Excuse me. Hello, Marcia Ann. Wonderful to have you here. So let's see. People are talking about it'd be super cool if Bill could arrange to have some sensor push or hobo data loggers put up in key parts of Madagascar to measure key metrics over the span of the year. Maybe that's something that we could do if we could put together a plan that would make sense of the data itself. So James is saying one thing I noticed was a much higher temperatures and humidity. Care to go into that? Oh, in this one, we can go into a lot of stuff. Once I get done with my presentation, this is how our workshops are going to go. I am going to go through a presentation, get a main idea out. After that, we'll have a little bit of a halftime, and then it's going to be open season. We're going to talk about any questions, any other perspectives, and that is definitely, we can go into the different things that we saw in Madagascar. Now, so we go to the wild and we find these chameleons that are really in rough shape, but they're doing great. And so the question is, what's the difference? The answer is that the wild data is our source. This is where we're going to get the information that we need to put together the best husbandry. Now, I know many of you are saying, yeah, Bill, that's obvious. Why in the world do you have to say that? And the answer is there's question as to whether you can go out into the world right now and people are openly asking whether we need wild data. What does it matter? They're in captivity now. We'll put them in a cage. We'll adjust the parameters like they're a black box, and we'll figure out how it affects them. And if you go with that mindset, then it's like a test case, and you're just putting parameters on this chameleon and seeing what the result is. And so I think, and when I say it that way, I'm sure many of you are just uncomfortable with that thought of treating the chameleon like it's an experiment. And that's just uncomfortable, but we need to have a clearer understanding so we can actually put it into words as to what we want from our chameleon keeping experience. And I'm going to be talking about it here. That's one thing that we're going to be talking. One of the main takeaways of this workshop is going to be understanding why we think nature is important. And it is helpful to think about wild data, naturalistic husbandry. These concepts, these are a mindset. It is a way that we look at the world. And here, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the difference between treating them as an experiment and then going into this naturalistic mindset. The difference between them is how you measure success. Like when we keep a chameleon and we try something new, how is it that we say, okay, this is successful? And the most easy way to go about doing this is, are they alive? Are they growing? And are they reproducing? The thing about, and these are good and necessary ways to measure the chameleon, the success with the chameleon. And these methods can have parallels in our development as a community. Our chameleon community growth in the early 80s and 90s. Could we keep them alive? That was a huge question. Chameleons were known as the 6-month lizard. They lived for 6 months. And so we need to get to the point where we could keep them alive. And then we get to the point where, are they growing? Can we reproduce them? There was some reproduction going on. And can we keep them throughout an entire life cycle? Raise them from babies all the way up to adults. And then around the 2000s, it was about, can we reproduce them? Can we reliably reproduce them? And this was one of our greatest accomplishments, is when we could reproduce them reliably enough that businesses could form of offering captive hatched chameleons. We have a whole very healthy panther chameleon breeding community. That was a huge milestone. But here's the problem. If alive, growing, and reproducing are the way that you measure the success of your husbandry, we end up with minimalistic care. And the reason why is because once we're able to keep them alive, growing, and reproducing, then the mindset is, we've achieved our goal of husbandry. And now, what can we take away to make it easier to be able to fit more chameleons into a smaller space, to be able to breed more chameleons within the space that we have? How do we make it easier and more convenient? And that's what leads us to minimalistic care, especially among breeders, because every cage that they have is a certain amount of work. And so when you can reduce that, then you're going to be able to be more effective in producing more chameleons. You can see how, even though that is a stage that we had to go through in our community, you can see how that isn't satisfying. If you got into this because you love chameleons, that's not a satisfying mindset. And so the question is, what should we use to measure our success? And for that, the most satisfying answer is to match nature. How closely can we match the natural condition? And the reason why this is a little bit more difficult to grab onto is because it's open-ended. When we have our standards being alive, growing, reproducing, we can measure that. That's really easy to know when we're successful. When we talk about matching nature, the problem is we're searching for what we don't know we're looking for yet. We are looking for, what are we missing? What can we do better? That is a real hard way to measure success. But when you do, that's where you start getting enriched care. So when you start looking at nature and saying, how can I do this better? Then you start looking at, how do I make it better for the chameleon? Not how do I make this operation more efficient, but how do I make this better for the chameleon? And that is what we're calling enriched care. Once again, at this point, We have the challenge that enriched care has no measurement scale, at least not yet. How do we measure when a chameleon is happy? It's easy to measure when they grow, but the problem is we can get them to grow and reproduce. That's just what they do naturally to survive, what the species survives. That doesn't mean that the individual chameleon is enriched. It means the species will go on. That's their primary job in nature. But with our husbandry, we want the individual chameleon to be nourished. And so that's a little bit more difficult. And so I go to nature and I try to see what is out there, and you get back so many different parameters. You're observing so many different things in nature. How do we sort it all? Well, we have aspects of nature. There's things in nature that are enriching, that strengthen our chameleon. There's things in nature that they're tolerate, that they only tolerate, as in they can survive. They are tough enough to live through. And there's things in nature that are damaging. And these are things that are threatening to their life. That can be predators. In this case, if you look really carefully to that Balteatus, he's got a stomatitis or mouth rot. And that guy's in the wild. This was taken with a wild Balteatus. If he doesn't find a way to beat that infection, it will continue until he can't eat. His body will get weaker and he will die. So, nature's not fun. It is not good out there. And now, I do want to say, I am taking all these aspects of nature and I'm putting them into 3 buckets. There's no such thing as something that is all enriching, all just tolerated, and all damaging. It's a gradient. And I put that little yin yang between the enriching and the tolerated because there's some things, sometimes in nature, stress and adversity is necessary for the species to go on. Like some of the plants that require fire to produce seeds and reproduce. That is adversity, but it's necessary for the species to go on. It's up to us to look at these things and say, what do I want to include in husbandry? Is this thing that they're just tolerating, is that something that I should include in husbandry? Case in point, I'm looking at the dry season right now. The dry season kills chameleons. But I'm also looking at, there's 2 aspects to the dry season. Dehydration, but there's also a cooling effect. Could the cooling effect be a benefit, be enriching to the chameleon in that it gets a 6 months of a downtime of rest? Maybe that makes for a healthier chameleon. Longevity, to be determined. These are only ideas, and this is what we have to do when we look at nature. And we have to identify what is out there that that's important. And so let's start with the ideal husbandry, this enriched care section. This is the core of what we're looking for in nature. This is asking, what is best for my chameleon? And this is the goal for my care guides, is that those parameters that we've extracted from 365 days of the year in nature, we put it into one set of idealized parameters, the temperature, humidity, keeping them nourished, hydrated, and feeling secure. All of these things go to give them the best life possible. But then we got to start getting into the zone of tolerance. So these are the things that they live through, that they survive through. And this is like, okay, restricting their movement to small, sparse cages. I have heard of, I've not seen it, so I can't verify that it is, but I've heard that there are some people that are breeding panther chameleons on a mass scale, and they've got the females in cages that are so small that the females can't even turn around. But the females are growing and reproducing. This is keeping them within their zone of tolerance. It hasn't gone across the line where they're going to die, but they're in the zone of tolerance they're nowhere near the ideal husbandry. And so uh, this is asking the question, what can we get away with? And unfortunately, it's very easy to slide into that mindset when you think about this as in a business aspect. That's what the minimalistic care mindset is all about. What can I take away and have them still function and reproduce? So this is where we've really got to be careful when somebody says they're doing just fine, they're alive. Yeah, they can live through a lot, as we've already shown. It doesn't mean that it's ideal husbandry, and it doesn't mean that just because they're alive, we should accept it as, oh, okay, well, that's just another way to do it. No, there are some ways to do it where the chameleon is put first and the chameleon has the best husbandry. And then there are ways to do it that just keeps the chameleon in the tolerance zone. Those are not equal, and we should not accept them as equal. The challenge, of course, is how do you determine the difference between the two? And I don't have a clear answer to that. That's something we've all got to continue to work on. Oh. And then outside of the zone of tolerance is where it starts to get damaging. This is where people say chameleons are fragile, short-lived, treats chameleons as disposable because they're just going to die anyways. This is not where we want to be. And you see this sometimes at reptile shows where people buy something at the last minute and they get the cheapest cage and they say, I'm just going to enjoy it. It's $75. We'll just enjoy it for as long as they are alive. And that's just, we don't even want to, we don't even want to acknowledge that kind of mindset. Obviously, our focus should be ideal husbandry, enriched care of that individual. And by going to nature and observing what they've evolved to expect and desire, that we're going to be able to extract out from there and come up with new ideas as to how best to take care of our chameleons. So we need to keep in mind that enriched care, it's in direct opposition to our deep human desire to collect. We are collectors. If one makes us happy, we want 10. If there's 10 different varieties, well, then we need 20 because we need male and females of each different variety. We as humans just get this rush, this dopamine hit out of collecting things. And that's okay with Pokemon cards. But when we get to chameleons, it starts to get to be a problem when we collect more than we can take care of properly. And I'll fully admit it's so easy to get into that. Me personally, I am working on taking down my collection because I want every single chameleon that I have to have the absolute best in care. And so I'm going through a transition myself. It takes time. And so everything that I'm talking about here, I would like you to take it as a personal transition. Don't take this stuff as a club that you can go on to social media and start judging people as to what they're doing and hitting them over the head. Take everything that I'm saying here and apply it to yourself. We need to be the example before we can expect the rest of the world to start caring about enriched care. It's not until we make the changes and we're an example of what that looks like that they are going to be following. Now, enriched care is our new frontier. What this means is we're into a different chapter of our community growth. We are now in the age of enrichment. We have spent so many decades climbing up this mountain, producing this base of keeping them alive, keeping them growing, reproducing them. We've done all of that work. And so now it's time for the next chapter. To be sure, we still have work to go on to that. I'm trying to reproduce a shamrock chameleon, and it's not going as simple as a panther chameleon. We have to go through these steps for each and every species. But as a community, for the most commonly kept species, panther chameleons, veiled chameleons, we are well past the reproducing. We're well past the challenge of keeping them breathing and reproducing. So it's now time to get into the enrichment. And you all here are the enrichment generation. Doesn't matter how old you are chronologically, how long you've been here on Earth. If you are keeping chameleons right here and right now, you are part of our next chapter, which is enrichment, caring about the individual health and mental health of our chameleons. And so that's where we are right now. And I encourage you, embrace that and take that as something that energizes you. Yeah, it may take 10 years for you to absorb all the information and everything that we've built over these who knows how many decades. But just take that as the foundation for you to stand on so you can help us go into the enrichment chapter of our community. So we are Gen E. That's right. Your generation enrichment. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. And where in the world are we going to find how to enrich chameleons? We're going to look to nature. Nature and going and seeing them in nature is where we're going to find our next husbandry and enrichment advances, because that is a new source of information. Here in captivity, we can talk on our forums all we want to, but we're recycling information. Yes, we may have different insights and husbandry things that we try out. That's perfect. It's good. But if we want to revolutionize our thinking, we need to go back to the source. And that source is nature. So, all right. That is our presentation. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and go back and take a look at some of these questions here. So, this is Bill. Warms my heart to know you gave all those darling dog treats. Yes, and everybody helped me. and even Tia at one point, see the things when you give the dogs a treat, they don't trust you because they're kicked, they're chased away by humans. So they have a real hard time trusting. It takes a long time. And you got some of those, most of them won't take it from your hand. I've got to put the treats, I got to toss them a little bit away from me, and then they'll go after it. But you know what? That is something I wanted to bring to the world, is give those dogs the feeling that they're loved just a little bit. All right. Govy. Yes, Govies are good. Love those example photos. I'm glad you love those. So, hello, Jason, East Coast Chameleons. Amphibious saying, Bill, did Parsons inhabit only closed primary forests, or did you see them out in more broken canopy or basking in canopy holes? They were over in a wide variety, but they like to be high up. We found them in coffee plantations. And so they can go into disturbed habitat or totally artificial habitat, as long as they have their tall trees and they have some cover up top. So, Yvette, how was it taking care of all the chameleons and geckos while he was gone? Oh, she did such a good job, but she was tired. Oh, yes. Okay. So animals are not living perfectly in nature, especially in disturbed habitats. Yep. Yeah, we gotta, and this is the realistic thing that we need to realize when we go into these environments. Like I saw a lot of chameleons on invasive plants. So we need to be careful when we go and we think, okay, I'm going back to the original source. Yeah, the original source may not exist. So one thing I noticed, Bill, was much higher temperatures and humidity. Care to go into that? Yeah, see, when you go out into like Madagascar, we were measuring temperatures that you would never want to put into your cage because it would kill your chameleon. And you have higher temperatures, higher humidity. And this is where you start realizing that the in the cage environment, we have to be extra careful because we've limited the number of microclimates that the chameleon has access to. So we can't just take whatever measurements we get in Madagascar or from the weather app because chameleons may not be in that temperature range. I measured temperatures in the high 80s and 90s. If I did that in my chameleon's cage here, they wouldn't be doing well. But of course, the chameleons in Madagascar, they've got microclimates to go into, so they can hide from that 90s temperature, and they're down in the mid 70s, and that's where they're hanging out. See, that's what's really important about when we go there and we look at this temperature data, that we take it in context. And we have so many amazing community members with us today. We do. This is a great turnout. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Chameleon Academy. I'm glad you're here. This is meant to be our weekly learning session. I want this workshop a time that we can get together, we can learn something, and then we can discuss it. I've been told that I treat things like experiments too much of the time. Well, you know what? We all got our issues. So seeing chameleons living a tough life in the wild, does it change your perspective of how you feel as a keeper? Reassured you that the trade-off, freedom for good care, likely is worth it for our pets? And that's a very deep question. And it's... I didn't take it as a justification or to feel any better about captivity. If every chameleon coming into captivity came into proper care, I may have a different view of it, but I see how hard it is. And so many chameleons do not come into proper care. So I have a lot of work to do to get the word out there, to educate, produce educational material, get that educational material in front of the people. So in a way, it was a personal challenge. I realized I have so much work to do. And I mean, we all do. I'm not saying the entire weight of the world is on my shoulders. I'm just saying I'm the only one that I can affect. I'm the only one who I can change what I do. And so I'm looking at this and saying, all right, this is one thing that I have an effect over in this world. I can't change the conditions of sweatshop workers. That's just not where I am. I am here in the chameleon community, for better or for worse. This is where I am, and this is where I belong. And so I'm going to do the best I can where I am planted. And it really helps me, it motivates me to continue to do better in getting the word out there. But you know, one thing that really affected me was how hardy they really are. Let's see. The presentation streams are such a quality wealth of info. Chameleon Club Herpetoculture Society. Thank you very much, Aquatic Moose. I'm glad you appreciate it. And everybody, this is the first time. This is the first workshop. I'm going to be doing this every Saturday. We're going to be trying it out. And they will get more, and they will get better as I practice this. But I want your input, and you can either put it in the chat or else email me at bill@chameleonacademy.com. Give me some feedback. All right. Hello, Mason's Turtles. Good to have you here. Justin says, I would say the low temperatures at night would be more beneficial in captivity. Well, this is an example of how when we are our chameleons are in captivity, and when we reduce their choices down to a very few, they need more idealized husbandry than they would in the wild, because they have fewer choices, and that's on us. So, okay, continuing on. Boo, 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 boo. All right, just getting through the chat here. And we'll get to, there's Jen E. One proposed aspect of the next generation keeping, we have the opportunity to understand and support conservation measures of species in the wild. Excellent point. Sneaky says, how can an ordinary keeper try and push their husbandry to better replicate nature without going to their natural environment? Only rely on those who have gone. The way you can do this is to specifically align yourselves with the people who are actually going out into the wild and working on your husbandry so it is on the cutting edge. It's so easy to do a minimalistic cage, and you can go to some social media groups and they'll say, yeah, okay, good job. But the way you can help move husbandry forward is embrace the newest thoughts of how to do enriching chameleons and be an example of it. Practice it yourself until you can recreate it, until you're good at it. Show your enriched caging on social media. Be an example. So many people just scroll through and they're not involved, but they are looking and they are absorbing. And the more people that create these rich, large, fully planted cages, beautiful cages, the more that's going to become the norm and what's expected. So, all right. I am going to say, Bill, I would venture to say you affect the way other reptiles are cared for, even beyond. Yes. There's so many people that keep other reptiles, that watch the Chameleon Academy and listen to the podcast, and I love it. I do speak about chameleons because that's what I know, but all reptile people, this affects all reptile people, and these mindsets are common across for most people. So, all right, everybody, it is time to do a giveaway. Let's do. Let's see if I gotta hang with me. So our first giveaway is going to be this magnet, and just don't put anything into the chat yet. But this is a magnet from Madagascar, and I don't know, they like to make I think their chameleons look like aardvarks, but that's a chameleon from Madagascar. Oh, and so what I'd like you to do is type #magnet into the chat. Let's see. So to enter into this drawing, and by the way, this is international. I will ship this anywhere in the world. So if you are in a different country, you are welcome to join this giveaway. And so type #magnet into the chat. And by the way, only type it once. Typing it 10 times isn't going to enter you 10 times. Only do it once. Don't annoy all of us, okay? Just type it once and you will be in. And so this is a very cool little magnet from Madagascar. And so I'm going to give this a couple of minutes here for people to type that in. And I brought and this is something that I want to do on these Saturday workshop days is we'll have some giveaways and such. So while you all are typing that in, I want to say we all thank you, James. Yes, thank you, James. Yeah. While we're doing that, everybody's doing that, we do have a sponsor, and the sponsor is Dragon Strand. Many of you know Dragon Strand is my caging company, and that's how it was really easy to get them to sponsor this episode. And this has been a caging company from since 2013, and we keep trucking along. It's the most full-featured chameleon cage, and we have both a hybrid version and a screen version. Screen version has a solid back. That's what's unique about the screen version, and they all come with dragon ledges, so you can mount your plants where they need to be. Right now we have the screen cages in stock, and the hybrid cages will be back in stock at the end of next week. So Geraldine says, so you are sponsoring yourself. Yes, Geraldine, I'm doing this as an example. So I'd like to, we'll get other sponsors. I have people who have asked, and I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, we can do sponsors. And so if I can get sponsors, I can get better software that we can use and better stuff. And so we can, I really want to take this Saturday afternoon and make it the best that a live session can be. So in a chance of a 36 wide variation, Nate, we are by next month, which is actually this month, I am hoping very soon that we will have a 4 foot wide cage. Right now, the only thing left to do is the drainage tray. See, every cage that I make has a drainage tray. That's the one thing that I said I want as a characteristic of a Dragon Strand cage. And so we're trying to, or we're finishing the design for the drainage tray. But coming. So, all right. We've got a question about in the summer during midday when the room temperatures reach about 30 degrees Celsius is still needed for a basking light. No, you don't need basking light is only to warm them up in the morning. Once it's warm, you don't need a basking light. So you don't have to do that. Annette, thank you very much for that support. All right. It is time. It is time to draw. Boom. Who will take home the Madagascar magnet? It's hey, Joanne. Hey, all right. Joanne, if you would please send your address. Actually, I think I have your address, but please, okay, let's just make this clean. But send your latest address, whatever it is, wherever you want, in the mail, and I am going to be sending this out to you. Congratulations. Thank you very much for being here. So, all right. Now, let's do this again. We have another giveaway. Don't put in the keyword yet. don't put in the keyword yet. Wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. No. Give me a second here. I gotta set everything up, so don't put it in yet. So, carving. Let's see. Did I do that right? Okay, everybody, let's go. You can go ahead and type in the word carving, and that is going to be, okay, let me get this back up so you can see this little guy. What's his, yeah, I know his tail goes back up like that. I don't know. All I can say is this is an authentic Malagasy carving, and that's just the way they carved it. So for this carving, please put in your put in that keyword. If I'm going to lose, I'm happy it's Joanne. Yes, Joanne is the wonderful person to get to be the winner of this. And by the way, it's case insensitive, so it doesn't matter if it's a capital C or not. So, and I want to say to the people out there right now, I would like to start some sponsors. And so if you are interested in sponsoring this a show, which would mean that you would get a slide, I would talk about it. We could talk about about a minute's worth of talking about your product, talking about you. Or if you just want to support the show and just say, hey, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be a sponsor just as a private, you're not selling anything, that's fine too. So send me an email and we can talk about it. And I'd like to have a maximum of 2 sponsors per show. And I'd like to, it's a way of supporting the show and a way of supporting people in the community. So, all right. Do chameleons absorb UVA from the basking light? If the basking light has UVA, they will absorb some of it. All right. Let's go ahead. Add it to the stage. No, we'll go up here. That's good enough. And it's time to draw. Natalie, hey, all right. Natalie, please, congratulations. And please send your address to bill@chameleonacademy.com. And I will get this little guy on out to you. So, all right. Whew. Well, everybody, that is our show for today, as in the official part of the show. Now it's open season, open discussion. How are you guys doing? Any questions about chameleons, questions about Chameleon Academy, what we're doing, where we're going? Hey, you know what? I should bring up, let's see. Whoa, we got a question here. Is there a female blue bar, yellow belly panther chameleon? There are females that will carry those genes. And you just have to go to a breeder that is meticulous in their record keeping and say, hey, this is what I want. Now, I know Jonathan Hill of iProdalis specializes in that color, and he'll be able to make sure that you get one that is unrelated to one that you already have. So when can I sign up for Madagascar 2026? As soon as I have all the details. I'm working with my my guide in Madagascar, and he is being slow to respond because I think he's out in the field and internet is often spotty out there. So I'm working on getting evaluating all the details. I wanted to do a little bit of change in the trip, and so we got to do a little bit back and forth, and hopefully by the end of this month we'll have things set up. So Marcia said we can breed our fathers because your hatchling care coming up. Yes. That is awesome. Let's see. I want to bring up something. Let's see if I go. Give me a second here. I want to show everybody what the future looks like. I just have to bring it up. Come on. What's going on? All right. Open with. Give me a second here. All right, folks. Add to stage. This is what This is what the future here looks like when we're talking about every week there's a theme. And this is what's coming up. We've already talked about February 1st, how to use wild data in chameleon husbandry. Next week, Saturday, is Stephanie Kong is going to be coming on, and she's a biologist that lives in Botswana. She sees chameleons on a regular basis. And we're just going to have a fun discussion about seeing chameleons in the wild and getting stories from her that may or may not have to do with chameleons, but are fun. She has Nile crocodiles, lions, elephants, giraffes, all sorts of stuff. And so that is one person you need to meet. And then what Renee is talking about is we're going to have 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about hatchling care. First, we'll talk about how to set up a hatchling cage. And it's not. I'm not going to be doing the minimalistic thing that people usually do with hatchlings. I'm going to be talking about how to do it as if the months of raising up your hatchlings is one of the most important and enjoyable months possible. This is not something to just get through. This is a very short window of time of opportunity to have one of the most special experiences with your chameleon. Once you have that little baby chameleon and you're raising them up, and you see the horns come in, the colors come in, whatever, that is a special experience. It doesn't last long, but I would like to introduce the concept of that being a time to be treated as special, not as treated as, okay, we're just going to get through it. So we're going to have a full 2 weeks talking about that. And then March 1st, I'm going to be talking about if you want to get involved in breeding, what species is best for 2025. And you'll see a lot of the standards, but we're going to be talking about what it is like in the breeding community out there right now. Did you see any parsoni in the coastal forest? Yes. We saw lots of parsoni. All of our white lips was from the coastal forest, the eastern coastal forest. So, how many breeds of chameleons are there out there? Over 200. We've got over 200. How hard is it to find captive bred carpet chameleons, and is their breeding similar to panthers? It is getting easier and easier. In fact, next month, in March, we're probably going to be doing a special on carpet chameleons. There's a number of people who have bred carpet chameleons and had them hatch and then are selling them, and another people from the Chameleon Academy community. And so they're becoming more and more available. And as they're breeding similar to panthers, the breeding is the incubation. Panther chameleons don't need a diapause. Carpet chameleons do much better if you give them a diapause. Yeah. Liza, do we have dates for the 10-year? What Eliza Anna is talking about is the in-person meetup for the 10th anniversary special of the Chameleon Academy. And I don't have the dates yet. That's something that I need to work on this week. That's on my schedule to really start nailing that stuff down. So, Bill, is there any chance we could do a guide on how to track lineage for genetic vigor? Seems like a weak point in the preservation or conservation part of the hobby. I'd have to think about how to go about doing that. We definitely have the sources and the information. I'd have to think about how it would be effective. You see, I can do a session all about vigor and such, and it basically is don't breed related chameleons together. The problem is that it's hard to tell who's related unless you go back to the wild blood. You'd be surprised at how many the panther chameleon breeders in our community, they trade bloodlines all the time. And so if you get chameleons from two different breeders, it doesn't mean they're not related. So I'll have to think about that. It's a good idea. There's complications in making it effective, but that's I'll think about that. I'll think about that. Have you noticed a difference with offspring of wild caught being captive born and raised in comparison captive? Yes, there is a difference in the further you go into captive generations. There is a difference, and part of it is not good. They seem to get less interested in breeding, so we still have a lot of work to do. Jason, our very own Nick Unz of Unzarium has carpet chameleons, and that is absolutely correct. And I'm going to be working with Nick, and we're actually going to put together a little seminar for the virtual campus. And by the way, everybody, when you hear me talk about the virtual campus, the Chameleon Academy has a closed course campus course forum platform that the people who are really serious about learning about chameleons can be part of. And it's $10 a month. It's a way to support Chameleon Academy in place of Patreon, because on this platform I can really give back. And so if you're interested in supporting the Chameleon Academy or would like to be part of that closed community, go to chameleonacademy.com and you will see the virtual campus. You can go there and join in there, and we interact every day. And this weekly topic that I'm talking about here, we actually start that the Monday before, and we have a whole week of discussing it before we get to this workshop. So that's one way to supercharge your chameleon involvement and learning. So can't wait to hear from. Yeah. Stephanie Kong. Yes, she's going to be awesome. Is it a live building of the cage? Probably not. I am going to be doing showing the cage being built up. I'm going to be showing that in the slides. I'm not going to be doing it live. And although I'd love to do it live, it gets complicated, and I still haven't figured out how to make that really cool for an actual workshop. So Tia's here. Yeah. Hi. Tia was my partner in getting some of the dogs to accept their treats. And when I had to go and do other things because I had responsibilities, she sat with a dog and helped it get the treats that I left for it. So thank you, Tia. I was looking into Rampholion temporalis just for fun. How would you suggest developing your husbandry for species with little information? Or better to let the experts do it first? If obviously I've got some, this is a deep topic, and I've got an entire week dedicated to something like this. I would say you look at everywhere you can about how they are in captivity. Or how they are in the wild. Like a lot of these Rampholion, Brookesia are not ground dwellers like we assume. They live up in trees. And so doing investigation into that is important. And whether you want to try that, one that then there's no information on, or whether you want to try something that has information, it just depends on what you want to do with your chameleon keeping. I would suggest doing one that has information and getting your legs under you and getting your experience with one that has information, and then you can translate that experience into one that doesn't have information readily available. So basically, orange eye, see temperature range similar to panthers, except the thing is, panther chameleons are so widespread, I can't say something like that. We did find panther chameleons and Parsons chameleons in the same general area, one locale of panther chameleons. So this isn't a connection that I would make because their husbandry is so different. But they do have overlap. Yeah. So our carpet's temperamental, similar to large species. They're kind of shy. So they're a little bit shy, shyer than a panther chameleon stuff. So hey, AVA, pick a question that you really want the answer to instead of peppering the chat with a lot of different questions, random questions that you could just type on Google. Figure out, is there a question you really want an answer to and you really want somebody who has decades of experience to answer? And let's see. Okay. For whatever reason, privately kept stud books for U.S. herpetoculture are rarely successful. And this is correct. It's very difficult for us to work together. And I don't know that this is an American thing. I'm sure it's just a human thing. We get excited when we're getting the chameleons, but when it comes down to the slog and afterwards of just putting down all of the data and keeping it together after all of the years, it's really hard to keep that going. And I think it's just hard for people to maintain concentration on one thing, especially when we are doing so much. Maybe if we had one species that we were working with, it would be a little bit easier. But I'm going to start working on this again. I tried it with the Kenyan Xanth project, and that was kind of a failure. But I'm going to try it again with the Shamrock Chameleon to see if we can keep track of the genetics. And that's going to be a little bit easier, I think. But all of these projects have been so difficult to get people to stay focused. Joanne says, like this format. Great, Joanne. Thank you very much for the feedback. I'm glad you enjoy that. We're working on fog machines. Excellent. Oh. Power was hit and miss. Some hotels shut the power off at 11 o'clock at night until 6 in the morning, and then there were random outages. Yes, it was difficult. You think having internet was difficult in Madagascar. It's difficult having electricity. And the thing is, it was worse this time than it was the first time. So that's interesting. Always dynamic. So, all right, everybody. We're coming to the end of this workshop. Thank you very much for being here with me today for this first workshop. If you're not part of the newsletter, sign up for the newsletter. It goes out on Monday, and we're going to be talking about the next topic. And it starts with the newsletter, and that topic is going to be seeing chameleons in the wild. I'm going to be talking about the different places you can go and which places are better than the others for seeing chameleons in the wild. And so go to chameleonacademy.com and sign up for the newsletter there. Let's see. Everybody is giving me their last hellos. And Tia says electricity and hot showers equal luxury. Yes, I will tell you, once you go to Madagascar, you will appreciate where you're appreciate home a whole lot. But she is absolutely correct. So thank you. Hey, Sour Patch. Good to see you. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining. See you next time.